Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Gyan Bhakti. We are currently exploring the mystical scripture Mysticism of Srimad Bhagavatam. Commentaries by my Guruji Swami Jyotirmayananda Maharaj, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So, in today's satsang, we will discuss the mystical implication of the destruction of Arishtasura. Mystically, the cowherd boys and the cowherd girls, gopis and gopas, who represent divine sentiments, are all threatened by the strange creature Arishtasur. Arisht means obstacle, anything that interrupts something pleasant. As an aspirant advances and Kundalini Shakti moves from the heart center towards the head, subtle obstacles present themselves. Some of these obstacles remain subtle, while others become gigantic, like the ox. Arishtasur represents the spiritual pride that makes one feel, I have become a great devotee of God. Who else is a greater devotee? When that egoistic pride starts to assert itself and grows out of proportion, it takes us away from the right course, the course of dharma or righteousness. Then the gopis and gopas, the purest sentiments of our heart, are threatened and begin to flee from our personality. So we have to be very cautious, very careful as we advance on the holy path to make sure that we are not losing our way with pride and that our ego is constantly under check. As a result, we lose that inner experience of spiritual expansion that we have been enjoying with such profound delight. However, by the grace of Krishna, that obstacle is destroyed as we advance on the spiritual path and the bliss of divine communion is restored. So, Krishna will come to our rescue if we are sincere on our path and we seek his guidance and help. Let's move on to the next episode, Overcoming Demon Keshi, the Mighty Horse. In his continuing attempts to destroy Krishna, King Kamsa sent a demon named Keshi to the village where Krishna lived. This demon, assuming the form of a giant horse, came running at the speed of mind, shaking the clouds with his mane, neighing ferociously, pounding the earth with his feet so that there were terrible tremors. When this horse, as huge as a mountain, opened his mouth, it appeared as if one were staring into a vast cavern. When the villagers of Vraj saw that horse approaching, they started shouting and crying for help. Krishna quickly stepped forward in order to stop that menacing creature. Seeing Krishna before him, Keshi was overjoyed and immediately tried to strike Krishna with his hind legs. Krishna, however, avoided the attack and grabbed those wild hind legs with both his hands. Then, just as an eagle shakes a snake and destroys it, Krishna whirled that terrible demon with all his mighty strength and flung him a good distance away. As Krishna stood watching, Keshi, who had been unconscious for a while, got up and again rushed towards Krishna. Krishna smiled and hurled his hand into the mouth of the demon. That divine hand, which can be the epitome of tenderness, became like a blazing hot thunderbolt within the mouth of Keshi. It knocked out all his teeth and continued penetrating his body, tearing him apart just as one smashes a cucumber. Thus Krishna brought about the end of that demon who had been a source of terror to sages and gods for such a long time. Because this demon was considered one of the most terrible demons Lord Krishna destroyed, Lord Krishna has also got the name of Keshani Sudan, or simply Keshava, the destroyer of Keshi. So that was the title or the name that people lovingly called him, Keshava. So, mystical meaning, Keshi represents the type of vikshep or mental distraction which prevents itself during one's spiritual movement when Kundalini begins to move from the heart towards the Agya Chakra. Agya Chakra is between our in the between our eyebrows, in the top, in between the forehead, right where we apply the kumkum tilak and where Lord Shiva's third eye is. Kesh represents generally hair, lots of hair, and if you cut hair, it grows again quickly. Therefore, hair is a symbol of outgoing, proliferating thought waves or desires of the world, and that's why you may see a lot of sannyasis, swamis, including myself, bald headed, which means we are always reminding ourselves that we have to constantly shave off these vasanas that will come up, because hair continues to grow. You cut it again, it comes back again. So it's a lifelong process of discipline. So when a person is initiated into sannyasa, the ceremony referred to as mundan is performed. That's the meaning. So the mystical meaning, that the mind continue to generate outgoing thought waves and desires of the world, have to be curtailed, as we just discussed. In this story, Keshi is represented as a wild horse, which is the very personification of tremendous distraction. Even though one may be advancing spiritually, when the thought waves of our mind are touched by rajas, the guna of distraction and externalization, one can become just like Keshi if we are not vigilant. We may even develop a subtle spiritual pride whose expressions come romping like that big horse clouding the whole atmosphere. The demon initially attacks Krishna with his hind legs. This subtly implies that while we are distracted, we may seem to be fine, but afterwards we realize our error and suffer the impact. Every distraction causes obstacles to our spiritual evolution, but we realize it afterwards, not immediately. As we evolve, the thought waves of our mind begin to flow to Krishna as the only reality. When that happens, those thought waves are as if encountering the hand of Krishna, and their Rajasic nature terminates. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, wherever your mind goes, think of me. There discover the presence of the divine self. So he is guiding him the path of finding God. When you first begin practicing meditation, we are asked as a disciple to withdraw the mind from all objects and redirect it again and again to the object of meditation. This process is called dharana. With increasing purity of intellect, however, we allow the mind to flow where it will, ever aware that the every object it thinks of is none other than the divine self. Strip an object of name and form and it is nothing but Satchitananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. Therefore, whether our mind turns to our relatives or friends, to pumpkins or to politics, there is no reason to feel distracted from our goal. Simply watch our mind as it moves and go on reminding it that the reality behind all objects is the divine self. None of them can exist without the self. So then that process makes it a little bit easier. Our mind can never move away from God. It simply moves from one aspect of God to another, because this whole universe is nothing but divinity, God. This world is God's visible form. If that higher understanding has come to us, then God has thrust his hand into the vikshepa aspect of our mind and distractions will be eliminated. We have learned the art of absolute serenity. So with this thought, let us close today's satsang, and we will continue the glories of Lord Krishna in tomorrow's satsanga. This is Swami Nikhilanand. Om Tat Sat.